The night the world collapsed around Emily Parker started like any ordinary Friday in Manhattan, with the soft glow of streetlights brushing against the tall glass windows of the Riverside Ember, one of the most elegant restaurants overlooking the Hudson River. She walked in slowly, one hand resting on her growing belly. Her husband, Ryan, had insisted they meet there for a quiet dinner, claiming he wanted to reset their struggling marriage. Emily believed him because she always believed the best in people, especially the man she thought would cherish her and the child they were expecting. But the moment she entered, something felt wrong. The air was too still, the conversations too muted, and Ryan was nowhere near the table he reserved. Instead, he stood in the center of the lobby beside a woman Emily recognized immediately, Sabrina Cole, the woman rumored to be seeing her husband behind her back. Emily froze, her heart skipping as Sabrina smiled with a sweetness so sharp it felt like a blade. Ryan didn't rush to help his pregnant wife. He didn't even look guilty. He looked amused, almost excited, as if he'd been waiting for this moment to unfold exactly the way it would. Before Emily could speak, Sabrina stepped forward holding a stainless steel kettle, still steaming. The heat radiated through the air, and Emily instinctively shielded her belly. A few diners gasped, but Ryan raised a hand as if signaling them to stay back. His eyes were cold, almost unrecognizable. Emily whispered his name, hoping he would stop this madness, but Ryan only smirked. "You always ruin everything," he muttered, loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. The room tightened with unease. Sabrina lifted the kettle higher, her expression shifting from polite cruelty to unrestrained malice. Emily backed away, but the marble floor beneath her felt slippery, and the sharp scent of citrus cleaners filled her lungs. The baby kicked, a sudden flutter that made her chest ache with fear. She opened her mouth to beg for calm, but before a single word emerged, Sabrina lunged forward. A scream tore through the restaurant as the boiling water flew toward Emily's face. She stumbled, hands instinctively protecting her child, not herself. The heat seared the air inches from her skin, and in that suspended moment, Ryan's voice sliced through the chaos with chilling encouragement. "Do it," he shouted, his tone shockingly triumphant, as if this attack were some twisted reward he had long waited for. Diners rose from their seats, some calling out, others frozen, unable to grasp what was unfolding before them. Emily felt her pulse thundering in her ears as she twisted her body, trying to avoid the scalding stream now splashing across the polished floor. Fear wrapped around her like a vice, but deeper than fear was disbelief. How could the man she had trusted, the father of her unborn child, stand there cheering on her suffering? Ice rushed through her veins as she stumbled backward toward the wall, her breath tightening as the room seemed to collapse around her. Someone yelled for security. Another begged Sabrina to stop, but everything blurred into a distant echo. The world shrank to heat, fear, and betrayal. Emily pressed a hand against her stomach, whispering a promise that she would protect her child no matter how much pain she faced. But just before the boiling water could strike her again, her trembling fingers brushed the phone in her pocket, a phone containing the one number that could flip her entire fate in a way no one in that room could imagine. Emily Parker had always believed that love was something you nurtured, even when it hurt. Growing up in Ohio with a single mother who worked double shifts at a grocery store, she learned early that relationships survived on patience, forgiveness, and quiet sacrifice. When she met Ryan during a volunteer event in Chicago, she thought she had finally found someone who valued those same things. He was charming, driven, and full of gentle promises that made her feel seen for the first time in years. He told her she deserved stability, warmth, and a future where someone would protect her the way no one ever had. And for a long time, Emily believed him. She believed him when he bought their small apartment in Manhattan. She believed him when he insisted she quit her second job so she could rest more during pregnancy. She believed him even when he grew distant, working late nights that smelled like perfume she didn't wear. But the truth had been unraveling slowly in the shadows long before the boiling water ever touched the air. A missed call at midnight. A lipstick mark on his shirt he laughed off. A credit card bill that didn't match his stories. Emily had tried to ignore each sign because hope is stubborn, especially for a woman carrying the child of the man she still wanted to trust. She remembered a night 2 months earlier when she sat on their sofa, sipping warm chamomile tea, waiting for Ryan to come home. He arrived past 2 a.m., wearing a smile too bright and carrying a phone he hid the moment he saw her. She felt something inside her chest crack softly, like a fault line opening quietly under the weight of denial. But Emily convinced herself he was stressed. She reminded herself that he once held her hand outside a winter clinic when she thought she might lose the baby. She clung to that memory, the way people cling to the last warm light before night takes over. Now, standing in the restaurant with the sting of betrayal sharper than any scorch, Emily finally saw the truth she had refused to face. Ryan hadn't drifted away. He had abandoned her long before tonight, piece by piece, until nothing remained but his resentment and the cruelty he no longer cared to hide. He was not the man she fell in love with. He was not the man who promised to protect their family. He was a stranger, wearing the face of someone she once adored, a stranger who now stood cheering as another woman raised boiling water to destroy her. As fear wrapped around her ribs, Emily's thoughts spiraled into every moment she had swallowed her pride to keep their home peaceful. She remembered canceling her prenatal yoga classes because Ryan said they were a waste of money. She remembered deleting her old friend's numbers because he didn't like her talking to anyone who reminded her of her past. She remembered the quiet evenings she spent alone while he claimed to be working overtime, even though his MacBook sat untouched on the table at home. And in that dim memory, she understood something she had refused to admit. She had slowly disappeared inside this marriage, giving Ryan every piece of herself until there was almost nothing left. Yet carrying their child had awakened something fierce and ancient inside her, a strength she had forgotten she possessed. She pressed her palm against her belly, drawing courage from the small life she carried, knowing this night this terrible moment would not break her. It would. The Riverside Ember had always been the kind of place where people walked in with polished shoes, hushed voices, and the quiet pride of knowing they could afford a meal overlooking the glittering Manhattan skyline. Tonight, the chandeliers glowed in soft gold, and a pianist played gentle notes near the bar, while servers glided across the marble floor. Yet beneath all that elegance, something darker pulsed through the air. The entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see how far this nightmare would go. Emily felt the cold marble wall against her back, a shocking contrast to the heat that still lingered in the air from the steaming kettle. The room spun slightly, her pregnancy making the sudden chaos even harder to steady herself through. Guests stared, some horrified, some frozen, some whispering behind linen napkins, as though gossip might somehow soften the brutality of what they had witnessed. The restaurant manager hovered near the entrance, torn between intervening and fearing a lawsuit that could shatter the establishment's reputation. She could smell the faint citrus cleaner mixed with traces of lavender perfume drifting from Sabrina, who stood poised like a viper, waiting to strike again. The harsh fluorescent lights above the entrance reflected off Sabrina's glossy heels and her glittering bracelet, a piece of jewelry Emily recognized all too well because it had been hers. A birthday gift from her late mother, a gift she thought she'd misplaced. Now she saw the truth. Sabrina wasn't just stealing her husband, she was stealing pieces of her life, piece by piece, without shame or hesitation. Ryan's voice echoed through the sullen hush. "You can't even stand straight without looking like you're about to fall apart," he sneered, stepping closer, his tailored suit brushing against the light as if he belonged to the world of luxury, while Emily belonged to the shadows. "Do you know how exhausting it is to come home to someone like you?" She felt her throat tighten, but she refused to cry, not here, not in front of strangers, not in front of the man who had turned her world into a battlefield. Her hand stayed wrapped around her belly, feeling the reassuring movement of her baby, as if reminding her she wasn't alone. She inhaled, trying to ground herself in the soft scent of baked bread drifting from the kitchen, trying to remember the small joys she once connected to this city. Central Park picnics, warm Starbucks cups on icy mornings, quiet evenings where she dreamt about her child's future. Every memory felt distant now, drowned under the weight of humiliation. A couple seated near the host stand stood up, clearly shaken. The woman, her hand trembling slightly, whispered, "She's pregnant. Someone has to stop this." But her husband tugged her arm gently, guiding her away, too afraid to get involved in something that looked explosive and messy. Emily caught the woman's gaze. There was sympathy there, something warm in the sea of cold stares. It reminded Emily of the kindness she used to show others when she worked as a waitress years ago, carrying trays, offering soft reassurances to customers having a hard day. Funny how life circles back in unexpected ways. A sudden wave of dizziness washed over her, and for a moment she thought she might faint. The piano music faltered, the player's fingers slipping as he watched the drama unfold. Emily steadied herself, refusing to collapse. She needed to stay upright. She needed to think. She needed to fight. As Sabrina lifted the kettle again, steam rising in a threatening swirl, Emily felt her determination harden. She knew this place, its layout, its exits, its staff routines. Ryan had brought her here for anniversaries, for special dinners, for celebrations that now felt tainted. She remembered the private dining rooms, the hidden service corridors, the security cameras placed discreetly in corners, cameras that were recording everything at this very moment. Cameras Ryan didn't realize could become the weapon he never saw coming just as another unexpected figure pushed through the entrance doors. The doors of the Riverside Ember burst open with a force that cut through the tension like a blade. A gust of cold Manhattan air swept inside, scattering napkins and making several diners gasp. Emily tried to steady her breathing as she looked toward the entrance, her heart pounding, expecting maybe security, maybe a concerned stranger, anything but what she saw. It was Daniel Harrington, tall, composed, dressed in a charcoal coat dusted with winter wind. He looked like he had stepped out of another world entirely, one built on influence, quiet strength, and authority people didn't question. His eyes scanned the lobby with lethal calm, lingering first on Emily's trembling form, then on Ryan, then on the steaming kettle still in Sabrina's hand. Nothing about his expression shifted, but the entire atmosphere changed instantly. Emily hadn't seen Daniel in months, not since he insisted she call him if she ever needed help, pressing his Mont Blanc pen into her palm as a reminder she was not as alone in this world as she believed. Back then, she thought he was simply being kind, a wealthy CEO grateful she once helped him years ago at a charity kitchen. But now, seeing him here, she felt a confusing mix of relief and dread. Why tonight? Why now? How did he know? Ryan stiffened. His jaw tightened, and he took a quick step back, trying to mask the flicker of fear in his eyes. "What the hell are you doing here?" he snapped, though his voice trembled ever so slightly. "This is a private matter." Daniel ignored him completely. "Emily," he said, his voice steady, neither loud nor soft, just certain. "Are you hurt?" Hearing her name spoken with such genuine concern made Emily's knees weaken. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. She didn't trust her voice. She barely trusted her body to keep her upright. But she managed a small shake of her head, though the truth was, she didn't know if she was hurt yet. Shock numbed everything. Sabrina scoffed. "Who is he?" she demanded, stepping forward like a territorial cat. "This doesn't concern some stranger barging in." Daniel's gaze slid toward her, calm but chilling. "Put the kettle down," he said. "Now." Something in his tone made several diners flinch. Even the pianist froze mid-note. But Sabrina wasn't intimidated. She smirked and lifted the kettle slightly, as if showing off. "Relax," she said with a false laugh. "No one's even hurt. Yet." Ryan touched her arm. "Stop," he hissed, but Sabrina shrugged him off. Emily watched all of it, her mind racing. Daniel wasn't the kind of man who appeared without reason. He wasn't impulsive. If he showed up, something bigger was happening, something she didn't understand yet. Daniel took one slow step toward Emily, placing himself between her and the kettle. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't heroic. It was deliberate, protective, and terrifyingly fearless. "I'm giving you one last chance," he said to Sabrina without raising his voice. "Set it down before you add another charge to the list." "The list?" Ryan repeated, eyes narrowing. "What list? What are you talking about?" Daniel finally looked at him, not with anger, but with the kind of disappointment that hits harder than any punch. "You should have answered your phone today," he said quietly. The board meeting wasn't optional. Ryan's face drained of color. Board meeting? Emily blinked. Board? What board? What did Daniel know? What had he been doing behind the scenes? Before anyone could question further, Daniel slipped his phone from his coat pocket and tapped it once. The restaurant speakers crackled softly as if connecting to something. Every head turned. Even Sabrina lowered the kettle slightly. A voice began playing through the restaurant's audio system, Ryan's voice. Laughing, mocking, conspiring, talking about Emily, talking about the baby, talking about getting rid of her the easy way. The room went dead silent. Emily's heartbeat pounded in her ears as the recording continued playing, revealing ugly truths Ryan never expected anyone to hear. And just when Ryan lunged toward Daniel to stop the audio, a second recording began, one that mentioned money laundering, stolen funds, and a name Emily didn't recognize, but one that made Ryan go instantly pale. The second recording echoed through the riverside ember with a sharpness that sliced straight through the remaining pretense in the room. Conversations died mid-whisper. Glasses stopped halfway to lips. The pianist's hands hovered above the keys, frozen in disbelief. Even the servers, trained to glide through chaos, stood rooted in place. Ryan lunged toward Daniel, but Daniel stepped back effortlessly, his composure unshaken. "Turn that off," Ryan shouted, his voice cracking like a man losing his grip on the last thread holding his life together. "You can't just, this is illegal. You can't play that here." Daniel slipped his phone behind him, resting it against his coat. "Really?" he said calmly. "Illegal like conspiring to harm your pregnant wife in a public space? Illegal like hiding stolen funds under someone else's name? Illegal like falsifying your company's financial reports?" Color drained from Ryan's face until he looked almost sickly under the chandelier's glow. Sabrina blinked, her confidence faltering for the first time. She lowered the kettle an inch, eyes darting between the two men as if trying to piece together a story she was never meant to know. Emily stood in shock, her back pressed to the cool wall, her breath unsteady but her mind slowly sharpening. Every word from the recordings pierced her like a needle, but it also stitched together things that had never made sense. The late nights, the tension, the sudden bursts of anger, the money that went missing. The strange phone calls she overheard, filled with phrases she didn't understand. And the way he had insisted they meet here tonight, pushing her into a setting where witnesses could be manipulated and sympathy could be twisted. Daniel's voice cut through the buzzing silence. "You thought you were untouchable," he said to Ryan. "You thought no one would ever find out what you've been doing behind the board's back. But when you started threatening Emily, when you tried to drag her into your mess, that's when you crossed the line." Emily stared at Daniel, her lips parting. How much had he known? How long had he been watching from the edges of her life, quietly protecting her without her realizing? Ryan scoffed, but it was thin, desperate. "She's nothing. She's weak. She's emotional. She's pregnant," someone shouted from a table near the entrance. A man in a navy suit stood up, outrage shaking his voice. "You're doing this to your pregnant wife?" A ripple of disgust spread across the room. People murmured, eyes narrowing, judgment sharpening. The social tide turned against Ryan so fast he visibly panicked. His bravado evaporated. Sabrina, suddenly aware the room was no longer on her side, straightened defensively. "You all don't know the whole story," she snapped. "She's dramatic. She's manipulative. Emily pushed herself off the wall, her hand steadying on her belly. Her voice, though soft, carried across the silent lobby. "I begged you both to leave me alone," she said. "I begged for peace. And this is what you brought into my life." Sabrina's jaw tightened. "Oh, please, don't pretend you're some saint. He told me everything, how you tripped him with the pregnancy, how you—" "Stop talking," Ryan hissed, grabbing her arm. "Just stop." But Sabrina wasn't finished. Rage flared in her eyes, pride battling fear. "You said she was useless. You said you were only with her for the—" Ryan clamped a hand over her mouth. "Do you ever shut up?" Daniel stepped closer, his voice dropping to a quiet, dangerous register. "Touch her again," he told Ryan. "And you'll regret it more than you already do." Security finally arrived at the edge of the lobby, hesitant but ready. Diners watched with breathless anticipation, unsure what would happen next. Ryan's hand trembled as he let go of Sabrina. His eyes darted around the room, searching for an escape, any escape from the walls closing in. Then the manager stepped forward carefully. "Sir," he said to Ryan, "we need to review the footage with authorities. This incident isn't something we can ignore." Ryan's chest heaved. Footage, and in that moment, he realized the truth. The cameras had seen everything, including something he desperately needed no one to uncover, hidden in the private hallway near the restrooms. Emily felt the shift in Ryan's expression before she even understood it. His eyes darted toward the private hallway near the restrooms, the same hallway she remembered walking through earlier in the evening, searching for him when he disappeared for almost 10 minutes. Back then, she thought he was taking a call. Now she realized something else was buried there, something he was terrified the cameras had captured. A sudden tension rippled through the restaurant. Even the security guards noticed the way Ryan's breath quickened, the way his shoulders stiffened as though preparing to bolt. Daniel observed him with unblinking precision, as if reading every frantic thought racing through Ryan's mind. Emily pressed a hand against the wall, steadying herself. A dull ache rippled across her lower abdomen, not sharp, but unsettling enough to make her inhale deeply. She whispered to her unborn child, trying to soothe both the baby and the dread swelling inside her. She didn't need this stress. She didn't need any of it. But the unraveling of truth had begun, and the night would not pause just because she needed rest. Ryan suddenly pointed toward the manager, his voice cracking. "You don't understand. There's nothing back there. You people are overreacting. This is a private matter, and I'm taking my wife home." Emily flinched. The word wife sounded like poison on his tongue, possessive, controlling, nothing like the affection once woven into it. She shook her head slowly. "I'm not going anywhere with you," she murmured. The entire lobby seemed to freeze. Ryan's head whipped toward her. "Emily, don't start. You're causing a scene." "A scene?" Emily whispered. "You tried to let your mistress burn me." Daniel moved closer, placing himself between them without making it obvious. His calm presence felt like a barrier, a shield she didn't know she desperately needed. Sabrina crossed her arms, voice dripping bitterness. He wasn't trying to hurt her. She moved. "I told you. She's dramatic." Emily's composure cracked. "I'm pregnant," she said, her voice trembling, eyes glistening. "I'm carrying his child. And you tried to—" Her throat tightened, her breath hitching as a sob lodged painfully inside her chest. That cracked something open in the crowd, an ache of sympathy, outrage, and disbelief all at once. A woman near the bar placed a hand over her heart. A man muttered angrily. Whispered condemnation grew louder, heavier. Emily felt the room tilt slightly. A wave of dizziness washed over her, far stronger than before. The edges of her vision blurred, and a cold sweat clung to her skin. Daniel noticed instantly. "Emily," he said softly, steadying her elbow. "Sit down. You need space to breathe." But she shook her head, stubborn even through the haze. "No, I need to know what he hid back there. I need to know why he brought me here tonight." Her voice quivered, but determination wove through it like steel. One of the security guards stepped forward. "Sir," he said to Ryan, "we're reviewing the footage with or without your permission. If you interfere, you'll be detained." That single sentence stripped the last remnants of control from Ryan. Sweat gathered along his brow. "This is ridiculous," he exploded. "You can't treat me like a criminal." Daniel folded his arms. "Then stop acting like one." Emily's breath hitched again. A sharper pain pulsed low in her belly. She winced, gripping Daniel's sleeve. He steadied her quickly, lowering her into a nearby chair. "You need medical attention," he murmured. The manager handed Emily a cold glass of water. Someone else brought a folded cloth for her forehead. For a small moment, kindness pooled around her like a soft blanket. But Ryan's rage cut straight through it. "Don't baby her," Ryan barked. "She's fine." Emily looked up, tears finally slipping free. "You don't get to decide if I'm fine," she whispered. Sabrina scoffed. "Oh, please, she's playing the victim." But her voice stopped abruptly, as two police officers entered through the front doors. Their arrival shifted the entire room. Authority had entered the story. The truth was coming whether Ryan was ready or not. One officer stepped forward. "We received multiple calls about an assault on a pregnant woman," she said. "Who's involved?" 100 fingers could have pointed, but only one voice mattered. Emily swallowed hard, pulled in a shaky breath, and lifted her hand. But before she could speak, one officer mentioned something else, something shocking. "And we also need to investigate a report about suspicious activity recorded near the private hallway 40 minutes ago." Ryan froze. Emily's pulse stopped. Daniel's eyes narrowed. Something important, something dangerous was waiting in that footage, and it was finally about to be revealed. The officer's words hung in the air, like a crack of thunder. For a moment, no one moved. No one breathed. The world inside the Riverside Ember seemed to shrink into a single point, that private hallway and whatever secrets Ryan had tried so hard to bury there. Emily's pulse trembled beneath her skin. Something inside her warned that whatever the cameras captured wasn't small. It wasn't accidental. It was the missing piece of a puzzle she hadn't known she was solving. Ryan, however, reacted instantly. "There's nothing back there," he shouted, voice too loud, too desperate. "This whole thing is blown out of proportion. Let's just all calm down." But his panic betrayed him. The officers exchanged a knowing look. One stepped forward. "Sir, step aside. We need to review the footage immediately." Sabrina tugged at Ryan's sleeve, her confidence unraveling by the second. "Ryan, what's going on? What did you do?" "Nothing," he snapped, jerking away. If everybody would just stop asking questions, this would all go away. But nothing was going away. This was the moment the truth had been waiting for. Meanwhile, Emily tried to breathe through the tightening pain in her abdomen. It wasn't unbearable, but it wasn't mild either. She placed a protective hand over her belly, whispering silently to her child, grounding herself in the small, steady hope beneath her ribs. Daniel remained beside her, watchful, steady, quietly prepared to catch her if her body gave out. "You should sit back," Daniel murmured. "No," Emily said quietly, her courage building. "I want to hear everything." Her voice, though soft, held a new shape one Ryan didn't recognize. It wasn't pleading. It wasn't timid. It was resolute. The restaurant manager guided the two officers toward the back hallway, where the security room waited. The diners whispered as they passed, the tension curling around every table like thick fog. Ryan paced in circles, running a shaking hand through his hair. "You don't know what you're doing," he hissed at Daniel. "You think you're the hero? You think you can barge in and ruin my life?" Daniel didn't flinch. "I didn't ruin your life," he replied. "You did that yourself." Emily watched the exchange. She remembered the quiet strength in Daniel's voice months earlier, when he had pulled her aside after a charity event and told her she deserved better than the exhaustion she carried in her eyes. She remembered the way he had pressed that Mont Blanc pen into her hand and said, "Call me if you ever feel unsafe." She had thought he was being dramatic. Now she realized he had seen something she hadn't. 10 long minutes passed. 10 minutes of whispers, shaking breaths, and Sabrina muttering excuses under her breath. Emily could feel every second crawling across her skin. Then the security doors opened. The manager stepped out first, pale, shaken. Behind him came the officers, their expressions hardening. Officer Reyes approached Emily directly. "Mrs. Parker, we need to speak with you about something we saw." Emily's stomach twisted. "What? What is it?" Ryan lunged forward. "You don't need to show her anything. This is a misunderstanding." But Officer Reyes lifted a hand sharply. "Sir, do not interrupt again." She turned back to Emily. 40 minutes ago, your husband was recorded in the private hallway. He wasn't alone." The room grew silent. So silent it felt like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Emily swallowed. "Who was he with?" Officer Reyes paused. "A man who is currently under federal investigation for financial crimes." There was an exchange, documents, and what appears to be a large envelope of cash. Gasps exploded around the restaurant. Even Sabrina staggered back. But Emily wasn't shocked, not fully. Some part of her had felt this truth lurking behind all the lies. Still, the officer wasn't finished. "The footage also shows your husband discussing a plan," the officer continued slowly, carefully. to ensure you wouldn't testify against him should the investigation reach you. Emily's breath caught. The pain in her belly sharpened. Daniel's hand immediately steadied her shoulder. Ryan panicked. That's taken out of context. I was stressed. You can't twist my words. But Officer Reyes spoke over him. And the footage shows your husband instructing Miss Sabrina Cole to make it dramatic enough that she looks unstable. Emily's heart cracked in two. Sabrina's face drained of color. The officer's final words dropped like a steel hammer. Mrs. Parker, the attack tonight was planned. Emily felt her entire world tilt, not from weakness, not from fear, but from a realization that ignited something fierce inside her. Her nightmare hadn't been random. It had been orchestrated, calculated, premeditated, and now the entire city would know. Before Ryan could speak, Officer Reyes added one more devastating line, a line that made Emily gasp, Daniel freeze, and Sabrina crumble. And the footage also reveals someone unexpected. Someone your husband didn't know was recording him from the opposite angle. Someone who wasn't supposed to be in that hallway at all. A collective gasp swept through the riverside ember as Officer Reyes' words echoed against the marble walls. Someone unexpected. Someone who wasn't supposed to be in that hallway. Someone who had secretly recorded Ryan from another angle. The revelation hit the room like a shockwave, unraveling every assumption about who stood on which side. Emily felt her heartbeat thump wildly in her chest. Her fingers curled into Daniel's coat sleeve, not out of fear but out of a growing, trembling urgency. She needed to know. She had to know. Whoever this mysterious witness was, they had changed everything. Officer Reyes glanced toward the entrance just as the doors opened again. A figure stepped inside. The entire restaurant rotated toward them, as though pulled by a magnetic force. It was Chloe Benton, Emily's former best friend. The same Chloe who stopped talking to her 8 months ago, without explanation. The same Chloe who Emily believed had abandoned her during the hardest season of her life. Chloe walked forward with slow, deliberate steps, her expression steady, but her eyes filled with something raw, guilt, fear, yet also unshakable purpose. Her brown hair was tied back in a simple ponytail, and she held a slim silver iPhone in her hand, like it was a detonator to the truth itself. Ryan's entire body tensed. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no. What the hell are you doing here?" Chloe didn't look at him. She looked straight at Emily, her voice trembling. "I'm here because I couldn't let him destroy you." Emily's breath caught. You recorded him?" Chloe nodded. "I didn't plan to. I was here tonight to meet someone for work. When I saw Ryan in the hallway talking to that man, I recognized him. He's been under investigation for fraud where I work. I knew something was wrong, and when I heard what Ryan said about you, about the baby, I couldn't stay quiet anymore." Sabrina stepped back, eyes wide. "She's lying. She's trying to frame us." Chloe turned toward her with a stare sharp enough to cut. "I watched you rehearse with him. I saw the way he told you exactly what to do. And I recorded every word." Officer Reyes gestured for Chloe to hand over the device. Chloe passed the phone without hesitation. The officer examined the screen and nodded sharply. "This confirms everything." The remaining strands of Ryan's composure snapped. He lunged toward Chloe, but Daniel intercepted him effortlessly, catching Ryan's arm with a grip that warned violence would only make things worse. Several diners gasped as Ryan struggled, spitting rage, looking less like a husband and more like a man cornered by the truth he thought he'd buried. "You ruined my life," Ryan snarled at Chloe. "You both ruined." "Stop talking," Daniel said coldly. "Every word you say digs your hole deeper." Emily stared at Chloe. So many emotions flooding her at once: betrayal for the months of silence, confusion for her sudden reappearance, relief that someone she once loved had come back at the exact moment she needed it most. But above everything, she felt gratitude. Gratitude so deep, it almost brought her to her knees. Chloe's eyes softened. "I know I disappeared," she whispered to Emily, "but I left because I found out things about Ryan months ago, and I didn't know how to tell you. I thought you'd hate me if I tried. Emily swallowed hard. Tears gathered in her eyes. I never hated you, she whispered. Chloe's lips trembled. I'm so sorry, Em. For a moment, the chaos melted away, replaced by a painful but beautiful reconnection. Two women reconciling in the middle of a storm neither had chosen. But the moment didn't last. Officer Reyes signaled the security guards. We need to take Mr. Parker and Miss Cole into custody for questioning. Attempted assault, conspiracy, and potential witness intimidation. Ryan thrashed, refusing to accept his downfall. You can't arrest me. You don't understand anything. She's lying. The footage is fake. Everything is twisted. But the officers didn't slow. They didn't waver. And as they reached for Ryan, Emily rose, holding her stomach, her expression steadier than it had been all night. She met Ryan's eyes with something fierce, something he hadn't expected. You planned to destroy me, she said softly. But you forgot one thing. Her voice steadied completely. Truth doesn't stay buried forever. Ryan froze, breathless. And just when he thought the humiliation was over, Officer Reyes delivered one final blow. We're also investigating a sealed folder you left in the hallway. It may connect you to additional charges, including one you've tried to hide for years. The sealed folder. Those 3 words turned the entire restaurant into a silent courtroom. Every whisper stopped. Every eye locked on Ryan, whose face drained of color faster than a man realizing the last door out had just slammed shut. Emily felt her pulse throb in her fingertips. She didn't know what was inside that folder, but the terror flashing across Ryan's face told her everything, whatever it was. He had never planned for anyone to find it. Officer Reyes motioned to the second officer, who held a thick manila folder marked only with a date and a single initial. The officer handed it to her. She flipped it open carefully, scanning the contents with a tightening jaw. Ryan stumbled back. Don't read that. You don't understand. It's not what it looks like. But the officer didn't stop. She exhaled sharply, then looked up. Mrs. Parker, this folder contains financial statements, forged signatures, and confidential documents. Some of these are in your name. Emily felt the air rush from her lungs. My name? Officer Reyes nodded. Yes. It appears your husband intended to transfer liability for several illegal transactions to you. If these documents had been submitted, you would have been tied to tax fraud and money laundering. A horrified murmur rippled across the room. Sabrina swayed unsteadily. Ryan, you told me she knew. You told me she approved this. I lied, Ryan snapped. Obviously, I lied. She was never supposed to see any of this. Emily pressed a hand over her mouth. For months she'd felt something was wrong, but she never imagined this. He hadn't just betrayed her. He had been building a trap beneath her feet, planning to let her fall while he walked away untouched. Chloe stepped closer, fury flashing in her eyes. You were going to pin your crimes on a pregnant woman. Your own wife? Ryan pointed at Emily with a trembling finger. You don't understand. Everything I did was to protect her, to protect us. Daniel's laugh was cold, humorless. Protect her? From what, your ego? Your mistress? Or the federal agents you knew were coming for you? Ryan spun toward him, rage twisting his features. You think you're so perfect? You think you're the hero in all this? Daniel didn't respond. He didn't need to. His silence was louder than any accusation Ryan could make. Officer Reyes continued flipping through the folder. There's more. A letter addressed to an attorney. Several drafts of statements blaming your wife for emotional instability. And a request to initiate proceedings to have her declared unfit to make legal decisions. Emily felt her stomach twist violently. Unfit? Ryan squeezed his eyes shut. Emily, please. I was desperate. Things were getting bad at work. I made mistakes. Yes, but I wasn't going to let them take everything. I needed leverage. You needed someone to blame, Emily whispered. Her voice didn't shake this time. It cut, and Ryan flinched as if struck. The officers moved in. Sabrina raised her hands quickly, tears streaming down her cheeks. I didn't know about any of that. I just did what he told me. No, Emily said softly, meeting her eyes. You knew exactly who you were hurting. Sabrina sobbed harder. But no one reached to comfort her. The officers cuffed her first. She didn't resist. She only cried. Then they turned to Ryan. He jerked back. "You can't arrest me for this. None of it's been proven. You don't have enough evidence." Officer Reyes locked the cuffs around his wrists with a sharp click. "We have surveillance footage, witness testimonies, unauthorized financial documents, and recordings that came from your own voice." Ryan's voice cracked. "Emily, please, say something. You know me. You know I would never hurt you." Emily stood slowly, one hand on her belly, the other gripping the chair for balance. She walked toward him, every step steady despite the ache tightening across her abdomen. When she finally stood before him, her eyes glistened, not with love, not with grief, but with clarity. "I thought I knew you," she said softly. "But tonight, I met the man you've been hiding." Ryan swallowed hard, tears slipping down his cheeks. "I can change, Emily. Please, don't let them take me." She shook her head. "You already lost me long before they arrived." The officers guided him toward the door. Cameras flashed from diners recording the scene. The humiliation was total. But just before he was pushed outside, Ryan turned his head toward Emily in desperation. And that was when Officer Reyes added one final sentence, the one that made Ryan's knees buckle and Emily's breath catch. "This folder also contains evidence of a second betrayal, one your wife hasn't heard yet." A hush swept over the restaurant, so profound it felt like the chandeliers themselves flickered in anticipation. A second betrayal. Emily's breath trembled. She clutched the back of the chair, trying to steady herself as the world tilted for the second time that night. Daniel moved closer instinctively, ready to catch her if her legs gave out. Chloe stepped forward too, protective, anxious, bracing for something none of them could name yet. Officer Reyes paused deliberately, her gaze shifting from Emily to Ryan, whose face had gone slack with dread. "This evidence," she continued, "points to a deliberate, calculated act that predates tonight's events. Something your husband arranged months ago." Emily felt her heartbeat pound against the inside of her ribs. "What? What did he do?" Ryan shook his head violently. Don't say it. It's not true. It's not what you think." But the officer didn't stop. "Mrs. Parker," she said gently, "your husband tried to make sure you wouldn't have access to your own child." Emily froze. "My child?" Officer Reyes held up one of the documents, a scanned form with forged signatures. "He filed paperwork with a private attorney, claiming you were mentally unstable and planning to abandon the baby. He intended to secure full custody the moment you gave birth." Emily's knees buckled. Daniel caught her before she fell, supporting her as her breath shattered into a silent sob. The pain in her abdomen pulsed again, sharp but fueled now by emotional devastation rather than fear. "My God," Chloe whispered, tears filling her eyes. "Emily, I'm so sorry. I didn't know it was this bad." Emily pressed a trembling hand over her belly. Her child, her baby, the only innocent thing in all this cruelty. She wasn't just betrayed. She was targeted, used, endangered. Ryan, cuffed and shaking, lurched toward her, nearly stumbling. "Emily, listen to me. I wasn't really going to do it. I was desperate. I needed leverage. Leverage?" Emily whispered. "You were going to take my baby?" Ryan squeezed his eyes shut. "It was just a plan, a backup plan. You weren't supposed to find out." Her voice rose, trembling and fierce. "I carried this child. I protected this child. I loved this child when you didn't even care if we survived tonight." Her words sliced him open. But for the first time, he couldn't fight back. There was no excuse that could soften what he'd done. No lie to fix it. Officer Reyes spoke again, her voice steady. "The custody documents are illegal, forged, and submitted under false pretenses. They will be added to the charges." Ryan broke. His shoulders slumped. His face collapsed under the weight of everything he'd lost. But the officers didn't wait for another outburst. They guided him toward the door, moving swiftly through a room full of strangers who'd witnessed every drop of his downfall. Sabrina, already in cuffs, sobbed uncontrollably. But even she looked away from Ryan now, realizing she'd tied herself to a sinking ship that was never going to save her. Emily watched it all with a numb ache spreading through her chest. When the doors finally closed behind them, the restaurant exhaled a long, collective sigh of disbelief, sympathy, and the lingering echoes of justice unfolding in real time. Daniel knelt beside her. "Emily, breathe. You're safe now." Safe. The word felt foreign, but slowly, painfully, she let herself believe it. Tears rolled down her cheeks, not just from humiliation or heartbreak, but from relief. For the first time in months, she wasn't drowning in questions she couldn't ask. The truth was ugly, brutal, but it was finally out in the open. The pain in her abdomen tightened again. Daniel's expression sharpened. "Are you okay?" Emily wiped her tears. "I think I need to go to the hospital." Chloe immediately moved to her other side. "I'm taking her. Don't worry." But Daniel shook his head gently. "No. I'm driving her. And I'm not leaving her side." Emily looked at him, exhausted but grateful. "Daniel." He met her eyes with a depth that steadied her heartbeat. "You're not alone anymore." As they helped her to her feet, the manager softly ordered staff to clear a path. Diners watched with empathy, some wiping tears, others whispering prayers under their breath. Emily pressed a hand to her belly, whispering to the child she had fought so hard for. "We're going to be okay," she murmured. But as Daniel led her toward the exit, Officer Reyes called out one more time, her voice carrying a warning that would change the direction of the story once again. "Mrs. Parker, there's another matter we need to discuss soon. Something we found on Mr. Parker's phone. Something that concerns the night you found out you were pregnant." Emily froze mid-step, her hand tightening instinctively over her stomach. The restaurant doors were just inches away, safety only a breath beyond reach, yet Officer Reyes' words pulled her backward like an invisible hand. "The night you found out you were pregnant." That single phrase slammed into her with the force of a memory she had avoided for months. Daniel turned slowly, his protective posture stiffening. Chloe's face drained of color, sensing that something far more personal was about to surface. Diners who had been preparing to leave paused again, unable to walk away from a story that kept twisting deeper into betrayal. Emily swallowed hard. "What? What about that night?" Officer Reyes approached gently, careful with her tone. "Mrs. Parker, this isn't something we need to discuss here. You've already been through a traumatic event. We can wait until—" "No," Emily said, surprising even herself. "Tell me now." Reyes exchanged a brief glance with her partner, then nodded. "Very well." She pulled a small plastic evidence bag from her side pouch. Inside it was a phone, Ryan's phone, cracked at one corner, yet buzzing faintly with incoming notifications from people who had no idea their world had changed. "This was retrieved from your husband before he was taken into custody," Reyes explained. "We reviewed the recent files and backups. There's a video recorded the night you told him you were pregnant." Emily felt her heartbeat slide downward, heavy and slow. "A video?" "Yes," Reyes said softly. "It was recorded without your knowledge." Daniel's jaw tightened. "You're saying he filmed her?" Reyes nodded. Secretly. Emily's chest constricted. She remembered that night vividly, the small apartment glowing with fairy lights, the soft sweater she wore, the nerves dancing beneath her skin as she rehearsed her announcement. She had placed a tiny pair of baby socks on the coffee table, imagining joy, warmth, maybe even tears of happiness. But Ryan hadn't reacted the way she expected. He had been quiet, cold, distant. She thought he was shocked. She thought he needed time. But now a darker possibility bloomed inside her mind. He had known. He had planned. "Why would he record that?" Emily whispered. Reyes hesitated. Then she answered with the truth. "He intended to use the footage later, to argue you manipulated him emotionally, to claim you pressured him into financial obligations, and to support a narrative that you were unstable, unpredictable, even delusional." Emily felt something inside her crack, not sharply, but deeply, like a plate splitting down the middle. Daniel reached for her hand. "Emily, breathe." But she couldn't. Not at first. The betrayal wrapped around her throat like a tightening rope. "He filmed me," she whispered. "He filmed one of the happiest moments of my life, just to use it against me." Chloe stepped closer, tears welling. "I'm so sorry, Em. I didn't know he'd go that far. I thought he was just cheating. I didn't know he was." Her voice broke. "This." Emily closed her eyes as another wave of abdominal pain pulsed through her. Not dangerous, just stress, exhaustion, and the weight of truth bearing down harder than any injury could. Officer Reyes continued gently. "The video wasn't the only thing. There are text messages, long threads with the same man from the hallway, discussing the pregnancy as a complication and ways to use it strategically." Emily's breath stuttered. Daniel murmured something under his breath, something sharp, furious, protective, but Reyes wasn't finished. "There's more," she said. "A draft email that was never sent. It details an appointment he scheduled at a family attorney's office the same week you told him the news." Emily shook her head in disbelief. "He was planning everything. Even then." Chloe wiped her tears. "He wasn't a husband, Emily. He was building a trap." Emily looked down at her stomach, her hand trembling over the child who had done nothing but bring hope into her world. Hope that had nearly been weaponized against her. Daniel crouched in front of her, his voice steady and warm. "Everything he tried to do failed. He can't hurt you or the baby anymore. I promise you that." Emily met his eyes. Something inside her, something once fragile, began to strengthen, hardening into resolve. "He didn't break me," she whispered. "He almost did. But he didn't." Daniel helped her stand again. "Let's get you to the hospital. You need rest. And after that, you'll decide the next step." As they moved toward the doors once more, Officer Reyes called out carefully, "Mrs. Parker." "One last thing." Emily turned. The email draft he wrote to the attorney. It wasn't addressed to just one person. It was copied to someone else. Someone close to you. Emily's stomach clenched. "Who?" Reyes lowered her voice. "Someone you trusted completely. Someone who was supposed to protect you. Your husband's brother." Emily felt as if the floor tilted beneath her. For a moment, she forgot how to breathe. Ryan's brother. Someone she had welcomed into her home. Someone who had held her baby's first ultrasound photo with a smile that now felt sickeningly rehearsed. Daniel steadied her instantly, sensing the shock that rippled through her chest like a cold wave. Chloe swore under her breath, her face tightening with disbelief and rage. The diners who remained could only stare, unable to tear themselves away from the unraveling nightmare. Officer Reyes continued gently. The email draft was addressed to both a family attorney and Mark Parker. Emily whispered the name like it tasted bitter. "Mark?" "Mark, the calm one, the reasonable one. The one who always offered to help with repairs around the apartment. The one who told her over and over, 'You deserve better than my brother.' She had believed he was protecting her. She had trusted him. She had even confided in him during Ryan's cold spells. But now the truth cut through all those memories like shattered glass. "What was he involved in?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Reyes pulled another document from the folder. "Your husband and his brother drafted multiple statements describing you as mentally unfit. They intended to use them to support Ryan's custody plan." Emily felt her heart twist painfully. "He helped Ryan try to take my baby?" "Yes," Reyes confirmed softly. "In fact, much of the paperwork seems to have been filled out by Mark. He provided false reports claiming you were erratic, forgetful, and emotionally unstable." Emily shook her head slowly, as if trying to shake off a terrible dream. "I opened my home to him. I trusted him. And he exploited that trust," Daniel said, his jaw hardening. "He used your kindness as a weapon." The pain in her abdomen tightened again. Not dangerous, but fueled by betrayal so deep it pierced the core of her being. She lowered herself into a chair, breathing carefully. Chloe knelt beside her. You need to understand something. People like Ryan and Mark, they don't love anyone. They just use people. And they used you because you have something they wanted." "My baby," Emily whispered. Daniel placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "Not anymore. They can't touch you now." Reyes nodded. "We're issuing a warrant for Mark Parker tonight. He may run, but we'll find him." Emily closed her eyes, feeling exhaustion wash over her, heavy and consuming. But beneath it was something stronger, a flame that refused to be extinguished. She opened her eyes again. "I want to press every charge possible." Daniel smiled softly, just a hint, proud of her courage. "You will." Reyes placed a comforting hand on Emily's arm. "You're doing the right thing. Everything they planned has been exposed. You're not alone in this fight." Emily exhaled shakily. I don't understand why Mark would help him." "What did he gain?" Reyes hesitated. "We're still investigating, but early evidence suggests Mark may have been financially tied to your husband's crimes. If Ryan went down, Mark would too. Supporting the custody plan was their attempt to control the narrative and control you." Emily stared at the floor, her heart aching for the woman she had been just hours earlier. The woman who believed marriage was built on loyalty. The woman who believed family couldn't betray you this deeply. But now she knew better. Now she knew the truth. And the truth had set her free. Daniel extended his hand. "Let's get you to a hospital. You've endured enough for one night." Emily nodded, rising slowly. Her legs trembled, but Chloe and Daniel kept her steady. As they finally walked toward the exit, passing through the hushed crowd, Emily felt a strange sensation blooming inside her strength. Quiet, fierce strength. But just as the cool night air touched her face, her phone vibrated in her pocket. She fumbled for it. A text message. From an unknown number. Only 3 words. 3 words that made her blood run cold. "He's with me," Emily gasped. "Oh God." "Mark has the baby's ultrasound photos." Emily stared at the glowing screen, her breath freezing in her chest. "He's with me." Those 3 words pulsed back at her like a threat wrapped in ice. Daniel immediately leaned closer. "Emily, who sent that?" Her voice came out thin, strained. I don't know. It's an unknown number." Chloe gently took the phone from her trembling hand. Her eyes widened. "Emily, look." Attached beneath the message was a photo. A dim room, a table, and on it the ultrasound pictures she kept safely tucked inside a drawer at home. Her knees nearly buckled. "No, no, no. Those were in my bedroom." "How?" Daniel's expression darkened, a storm gathering behind his eyes. "Mark. He must have taken them earlier, maybe when he visited last week." Emily felt a wave of nausea. She remembered that day too clearly, Mark dropping by unexpectedly with a bag of groceries, offering to help around the place, because Ryan was working late. She had thanked him, unaware that he walked through her home like a thief disguised in brotherly concern. Officer Reyes, who had followed them outside, took one look at the photo and stiffened. "This confirms it. Mark is fully involved. He's trying to intimidate you or scare you into silence." Emily pressed a hand against her stomach, her breath shaky. "Why would he send this? Why now?" "Ryan is already arrested," Daniel answered quietly, his voice edged with a calm, dangerous certainty. "Because Mark knows once Ryan goes down, he's next. He's desperate. And desperate men do stupid things." Chloe wrapped her arms around herself. "Emily, he was in your house. He took those photos. He knew exactly what he was doing." A shiver moved up Emily's spine. Her home, the place she folded baby clothes and whispered to her unborn child, had been violated, her privacy stolen, her hope used as leverage by 2 men who were supposed to be family. Officer Reyes tapped the phone, her voice steady. "We'll trace this number. I've already alerted our team. Mark won't get far." But Emily wasn't convinced. Fear gnawed under her ribs. What if he comes here? What if he tries to hurt someone? Daniel placed a warm, grounding hand on her shoulder. "He won't touch you. I won't let him." He guided her gently toward the black Mercedes parked at the curb. The night air was crisp, brushing against her face, as if urging her to stay conscious, stay alert. Her body was trembling, part exhaustion, part adrenaline, part heartbreak. "Emily," Chloe said softly, walking beside her. "You don't have to be strong right now. You're allowed to break. You're allowed to cry. Emily shook her head weakly. If I break now, I don't know if I'll get back up. Daniel opened the car door and helped her into the passenger seat. She sank into the leather, closing her eyes briefly as the city noise softened around them. Then her phone buzzed again. Another message. Same unknown number. We need to talk. Alone. And then a video file appeared. Emily hesitated, her fingers trembling as she tapped it open. A shaky recording filled the screen. Mark's face appeared ice cold, smirk unsettling. Behind him was a wall Emily recognized instantly. Her apartment wall. I never meant for you to find out this way, Mark said in the video. But things got complicated. And now, I need you to cooperate if you want this to end peacefully. Emily felt Daniel lean closer, fury rising under his breath like a silent warning. Mark continued. Don't call the cops. Don't talk to anyone else. If you want your life back, meet me. Alone. You know where. The video ended abruptly. Emily's blood ran cold. There was only one place that message could mean. The place Ryan had proposed. The place Mark knew she associated with love, memories, vulnerability. The old pedestrian bridge overlooking the East River. Daniel's voice cut through the silence. Emily, you're not meeting him. But Emily wasn't listening. Her mind spun with memories, fears, and a mother's instinct that roared louder than logic. He's not after me, she whispered. He's after control. And he thinks he can still scare me. Chloe grabbed her hand. Emily, please. Don't even think about going. Emily's voice strengthened, deepened, hardened with something new resolve. I'm done being afraid, she said quietly. If he wants to talk, then I'll listen. Daniel's eyes widened. Emily, she looked at him, a tear falling silently down her cheek. I have to end this, tonight. And somewhere in the distance, unseen, unheard, someone watched from the shadows and took a single step closer. Emily's decision hit Daniel like a slap of cold air. He shut the car door before she could climb out again, bracing his hands on the roof as he tried to control the rising panic in his voice. You are not going to that bridge. Not alone. Not ever. Chloe hurried around the car, her breath visible in the chilly night. Emily, listen to him. Mark isn't like Ryan, he's worse. Ryan used manipulation. Mark uses calculation. But Emily stared through the windshield, her face pale yet strangely composed. He won't stop unless I end it. If I hide, he'll escalate. Daniel shook his head sharply. And what? You'll walk into a trap? That bridge is isolated. He chose it because he knows no one will be there. Emily. He's cornered. Cornered men lash out. Emily swallowed, her hand trembling over her belly. Then why would he ask to talk? If he wanted to hurt me, he'd already be doing it. Because he wants leverage, Chloe said, her voice breaking. He wants to scare you into silence. And once he has what he wants... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. The silence filled in the darkness. Daniel stepped closer, lowering his voice. You are not disposable. You are not bargaining material. And you are not meeting that man alone. Emily looked at him, really looked at him. In his eyes, she saw fear, not hidden, not disguised, real fear. For her. For her baby. It has to end tonight, she whispered again. Daniel exhaled, like a man about to jump in front of a train. Fine. Then we do this together. But we will not walk into that bridge blind. I'm calling a contact at NYPD. They can set up a perimeter. No, Emily said quickly. If he sees cops, he'll disappear. He'll go into hiding. And then I'll never sleep again. Daniel clenched his jaw. The conflict inside him was visible, tearing him between protecting her and respecting her choice. Then Officer Reyes approached from behind them, having overheard enough to understand the situation. Mrs. Parker, she said gently, Mark Parker is highly unstable right now. We have officers trying to track his location. Until we confirm where he is, you can't go anywhere alone. Emily shook her head. He won't hurt me. He needs me. Officer Reyes' face softened, with the kind of sympathy reserved for victims who haven't yet realized the depth of danger. People who want control don't negotiate, Mrs. Parker. They dominate. Mark is not someone you should reason with. Emily closed her eyes, a wave of exhaustion rolling up her spine. I don't want him to hold this over me forever. I don't want to keep looking over my shoulder. Daniel's voice gentled. Then let me protect you. Let me help you end this safely. Emily opened her eyes. The fear hadn't gone, but it was now joined by something steadier, something stronger. I don't want anyone else getting hurt. We won't, Daniel promised. But you can't face this alone. Not tonight. Not ever again. Chloe nodded. We'll go with you. All of us. But safely. Please, Emily. Emily hesitated, the weight of their sincerity pressing against her armor of fear. Then her phone buzzed again. One new message. No words, just a pin dropped on a map. The bridge. East River. 11:45 p.m. Her breath hitched. He's waiting. Daniel stepped closer, steady, unshakable. Then, we'll be ready. Officer Reyes lifted her radio. I'm calling backup. Discreet. No lights, no sirens. We'll position units around the area without being seen. Emily looked between them, her friend, her protector, the detective fighting for her justice. For the first time that night, she didn't feel alone. Okay, she whispered. We'll go. But carefully. Daniel nodded. I'll drive. He guided her back into the car, adjusting her seatbelt gently, his fingertips lingering just long enough for comfort. Chloe climbed into the back, scanning every shadow outside like a hawk. Officer Reyes spoke into her radio, issuing quiet commands. Units 4 and 7 converge 2 blocks from the bridge. Maintain distance. Eyes only. Daniel started the engine. The Mercedes hummed to life. As they pulled into the night, the city lights stretched around them in streaks of white and gold. But just as they turned onto the highway, Emily's phone buzzed again, a final message that made her blood run cold. If you tell anyone, you'll regret it. And then, come alone, or everything gets worse. Daniel looked at her, reading her expression instantly. What did he say? Emily swallowed hard. Tears welled. Her voice trembled. He knows we're not alone. Emily's voice trembled as she repeated the message. He knows we're not alone. Daniel's hands tightened around the steering wheel, knuckles pale under the dashboard lights. There's no way he could know that, he muttered, but the tension in his jaw betrayed his doubt. Chloe leaned forward from the back seat, fear sharpening her voice. Emily shook her head quickly. No, I didn't respond. Officer Reyes, driving behind them in an unmarked police SUV, crackled through the speaker of Daniel's phone. We intercepted that text too. He's monitoring something. Cameras maybe, or a third party. Daniel cursed under his breath. He's calculating every move. Emily pressed her palm against her belly, breathing slowly. If he knows I'm not alone, he might change locations. He might disappear. And if he disappears, he'll never stop. Daniel glanced at her, his eyes fierce. Emily, listen to me. You don't have to prove anything to him. You don't owe him a meeting. Every instinct I have is screaming that this is a trap. But Emily couldn't stop hearing Mark's voice from the recording. You want your life back? Meet me. You know where. I have to go, she whispered. Daniel exhaled sharply. Then we do this the right way. You won't step foot out of this car until I sweep the entire bridge. Chloe nodded in agreement. And I'm staying with her, no matter what. But Emily shook her head. No. If he sees both of you, he'll run. Daniel turned to her, stunned. Emily, are you suggesting? No, she interrupted firmly. I'm not going alone, but he has to believe I did. The idea settled heavily over the group. A dangerous idea. A risky idea, but a possible one. Chloe frowned. What are you thinking? Emily inhaled shakily. When we get close, I'll get out, where he can see me. Just me. But you and the officers stay hidden. Officer Reyes' voice cut through the speaker. Mrs. Parker, that's extremely risky. It's also the only way he'll stay put, Emily whispered. Daniel's chest rose with a frustrated breath. I hate this. I hate all of it. But he swallowed hard. You're right. Emily looked at him, her voice soft but steady. I trust you. I know you won't let anything happen to me. Something flickered in Daniel's eyes, something deep, unspoken, protective. I won't, he said. Not now, not ever. The bridge appeared ahead, faintly illuminated by overhead lights. The East River shimmered beneath it, the winter wind rippling across the water's surface. Chloe whispered, "It's too quiet." Daniel slowed the Mercedes, parking 2 blocks away behind a row of delivery trucks. The engine hummed softly before he turned it off. Officer Reyes arrived seconds later in the SUV. She approached quietly. "Units are in position. He hasn't moved." Emily's heart pounded. "Where is he?" Reyes pointed to a shadowy figure standing at the center of the bridge, hood pulled up, posture tense. "That's him." Daniel exhaled through clenched teeth. "Okay. Here's what happens. Emily, you walk to the bridge entrance. Not a step further. You keep your phone in your hand, screen up so we can see everything. The moment anything feels wrong, you step back. I'll be watching." Emily nodded, tears forming. "Okay," Chloe erupted. "No, she shouldn't go alone even for a second." "She won't be alone," Daniel cut in. "I'll be 10 feet behind her, hidden, and officers will surround the perimeter." Emily turned to Chloe. "I need you to trust me, please." Chloe pressed her lips together, eyes glossy, then whispered, "Come back to me. Come back to your baby." Emily hugged her briefly, then stepped out into the cold. The wind whipped her hair across her cheeks. The city lights glowed behind her like scattered stars. She walked toward the bridge, each step heavy with fear and resolve. Daniel watched from the shadows, every muscle coiled, ready to run. Officers spread quietly along the barriers, unseen. Emily reached the entrance and stopped. Her breath fogged the air. Mark lifted his head slowly, stepping into the light. His expression was twisted with desperation. "Emily," he said, voice trembling. "You came." Emily clenched her phone. "You said we needed to talk." Mark stepped closer, eyes scanning the darkness behind her. "You're alone?" Emily nodded once. "Yes, but then..." Mark's lips curled into a thin smile. "You shouldn't have come, Emily." And from behind a pillar, another silhouette shifted. Someone standing with him. Emily's blood turned to ice. A second silhouette stepped out from behind the pillar, taller than Mark, shoulders broader, moving with a slow, calculated confidence that made every instinct inside her scream. Daniel tensed in the shadows, grip tightening around the railing as he prepared to move the moment things shifted. Officers hid behind bridge supports, watching, waiting, breath held. Who is that?" Emily whispered, her voice barely carrying over the wind slicing across the East River. Mark tilted his head, almost amused by her fear. "Someone who has more to lose than I do. Someone who doesn't want you talking." The second figure stepped fully into the dim light. Emily's heart stopped. It was Ryan's business partner, Michael Grant, the same Michael who had always been polite, who brought wine to their dinner parties, who once held open doors for her at corporate galas. The same man whose name she'd heard whispered in connection with Ryan's accounts. The same man Daniel had mentioned earlier as being under federal investigation. Emily staggered back a step. You were at my house last year. You saw the ultrasound pictures." "Yes," Michael replied coldly, "and I saw weakness. That's why Ryan came to me. That's why Mark came to me. Because you were the only loose thread we couldn't control." Emily's breath shook. "Control? You were going to hurt a pregnant woman?" Michael smiled a strange, empty smile that made Emily's skin crawl. "Not hurt. Contain." Daniel, hearing that word, moved an inch closer. Officer Reyes raised her hand toward her team, signaling them to hold until Emily was safe. Mark stepped forward, agitation rising in his voice. "You weren't supposed to know any of this, Emily. You weren't supposed to find Ryan's documents. You weren't supposed to have people protecting you. You were supposed to be broken, scared, alone." Emily's throat tightened. "But I wasn't." "That's the problem," Mark snapped. "You kept surviving. You kept asking questions. You kept being resilient." Emily took a slow breath. "And that scares you." Michael's expression darkened. "You've become a liability, Emily. And liabilities Disappear. A cold shiver shot down her spine. She swallowed hard, resisting the urge to step backward. If she moved too fast, Mark might panic. Michael might react. Daniel might rush in too early. So she forced herself to stay still. "You don't have to do this," Emily whispered. Michael laughed, a short, sharp sound. "Your husband said the same thing hours ago, and look where he is now." Emily's heart hammered. "Ryan set this up?" "No," Michael said. Ryan panicked. "We planned." "And he got sloppy," Mark interjected, voice cracking. "Ryan dragged us down. We had everything under control until he lost it." Emily's eyes widened. "So, you're helping him?" "Even now?" Michael shook his head. "I'm helping myself. If Ryan goes down, we all go down. So we're fixing the loose ends." Emily's hand slipped over her belly. She whispered, "I'm not your loose end. I'm someone's mother." Mark flinched, just for a second, a crack in his bravado. Emily saw it. She went for it. "You were there when Ryan hit his lowest point," she said gently. "You tried to talk sense into him. I heard you. You told him he was ruining his life." Mark's breath hitched. "That was before everything fell apart." "You're not him," Emily pressed softly. "You can still walk away." Michael's voice sharpened. "Enough. She's manipulating you." "No," Emily said, stepping just an inch forward. "I'm looking at the part of you that still knows right from wrong." Mark froze. His eyes darted between Emily and Michael, fear spreading like cracks in glass. Michael snapped. "We don't have time for this. Do it now." Mark's face twisted. I don't." "Do it," Michael growled, "or we all go down." Mark reached toward his jacket. Emily gasped. Daniel surged forward. Officers tensed, but Mark didn't pull a weapon. He pulled out Emily's house keys. He threw them at the ground, the metal clattering sharply on the concrete. "I didn't hurt you," Mark said, voice trembling. "I swear, I just took the photos. I just wanted leverage." Michael stepped toward him, furious. "You idiot." But before he could finish, Emily took a bold step closer. "Mark, listen to me. You are in danger too. Michael is using you. He'll blame you the moment things go wrong." Mark's breathing grew ragged. "Stop talking. He already planned to," Emily whispered. "Ryan told me." Mark froze. Michael snarled. "She's lying." "Am I?" Emily asked quietly. "Or is that why he didn't show up at the restaurant tonight?" Mark's face drained of color. Michael realized what was happening. Emily was peeling Mark away from him, word by word. He lunged. "Enough," he shouted. But Daniel burst from the shadows. Officers surged forward. A shout tore through the bridge. And in the chaos, Mark screamed. "He said he'd blame me. He said I'd take the fall." Michael tried to run, but officers tackled him hard. Mark dropped to his knees, shaking. Emily stood frozen, trembling, breathless, watching the truth finally explode into the open. But then, a terrible, sharp pain ripped through her abdomen. Emily gasped, clutching her belly. "Daniel," she whispered, and then her knees buckled. Emily's cry cleaved through the chaos like a blade. Her hands flew to her stomach, her body folding forward as agony blossomed across her abdomen in a wave so sharp it stole her breath. Daniel reached her first. He caught her before she hit the concrete, his arms wrapping around her trembling frame. "Emily, Emily, look at me, talk to me." But she couldn't. She was gasping, fingers digging into the thin fabric of his coat as fear surged through her like ice. The world tilted, the bridge lights blurred into streaks. Her knees buckled again, and Daniel lowered her gently to the ground, his face pale with terror. "Call EMS," Officer Reyes shouted. "Now." Chloe ran toward them, tears already sliding down her cheeks. "Emily, Emily, breathe. I'm right here. You're okay. You're okay." But Emily wasn't okay. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. Her breaths came out in short, sharp bursts as another wave of pain tore through her. She tried to speak, but the words tangled in her throat. Daniel cupped her face, his voice thick with panic he couldn't hide. "Stay with me. Just breathe. I've got you. I've got you." Emily felt heat between her legs warm, terrifyingly warm, sliding down her thighs. Her voice cracked into a whisper. "Daniel, the baby." His heart dropped. Don't say anything. Help is coming." Officer Reyes knelt beside them, checking Emily's pulse with steady hands, though her eyes were filled with worry. "She's going into antenatal distress, likely triggered by shock and adrenaline." Emily winced as another sharp pain cut through her belly. The world spun. She clenched Daniel's sleeve like a lifeline. "I'm scared," she whispered, voice tight, breaking. Daniel swallowed hard, his own voice cracking. "I know, but you're strong. And you're not alone, Emily. I'm right here." Sirens wailed faintly in the distance, growing louder. Too slow. Far too slow. Chloe brushed back Emily's hair with shaking hands. "Hold on, Em. Please. You've survived everything tonight. You're going to survive this, too. Your baby's going to be okay." Emily's breathing hitched, her voice trembling. "Kicked. Earlier. I felt him." Daniel's heart clenched. "Good. That's good. That means he's fighting too." Behind them, officers wrestled Michael into cuffs. He spat curses, yelling that he wanted a lawyer, shouting that nothing could be proven. But no one listened. All eyes were on Emily. Even Mark, still kneeling with his hands on his head, stared in horror, whispering, "Oh God, I didn't want this." Reyes shot him a glare so cold he flinched. "You don't get to want anything anymore." Emily curled slightly, another wave of pain racking her body. "Daniel, don't let anything happen to him," she whispered, meaning the child she carried. Daniel pressed his forehead to hers for a split second, a desperate, grounding gesture. "Nothing will happen. I promise you. I swear on my life." Her tears spilled. "I can't lose him. After everything." "You won't," Daniel said fiercely. "I won't let that happen." The sirens grew louder. Closer. Red and blue lights washed over the bridge. 2 paramedics sprinted toward them with equipment, their voices brisk and urgent. "Ma'am, stay still. We're going to take care of you." Emily tried to nod but winced instead. Daniel helped lift her onto the stretcher, refusing to move away, even as paramedics worked around him. "She's 32 weeks, Chloe told them quickly. "Stress, induced pain, possible bleeding." One paramedic nodded sharply. "We need to get her in now." Emily reached for Daniel's hand, her fingers slippery with sweat, her grip weak but desperate. "Don't leave." He squeezed her hand back, leaning close. "I'm right here. I'm coming with you." As the paramedics lifted the stretcher, Emily's vision blurred again. The cold wind lashed her face. The flashing lights felt too bright. "Daniel," she whispered, barely audible. "Yes? If something happens." He cut her off, voice breaking for the first time that night. "No, nothing is going to happen. You're going to be okay. Both of you." Emily's tears fell. I'm tired." Daniel's heart shattered. "Then rest. I'll keep you safe." The stretcher slid into the ambulance. Chloe climbed in beside her. Daniel followed without hesitation. As the doors slammed shut, Mark shouted something unintelligible, officers restraining him. Michael cursed. The bridge lights flickered in the wind, but inside the ambulance, Emily's eyes fluttered, and then softly, slowly, closed. "Emily, Emily," Daniel's voice cracked. The paramedic shouted, "She's losing consciousness. Keep her awake." But it was too late. Emily slipped into darkness, the deepest one yet. Emily floated in a strange, weightless darkness. Voices drifted in and out muffled, distorted, as though she were underwater. Sirens wailed somewhere far away. A steady beeping pulsed like a heartbeat, not her own. Then a voice broke through the fog, rough, shaking, desperate. "Emily, Emily, please, stay with me." "Daniel." His voice trembled in a way she had never heard before. Her eyelids fluttered, but the world remained a blur. She tried to speak, but the darkness pulled her down again like a tide.